Local mother and her two children killed in a murder-suicide laid to rest today. Schinara Patterson and her two daughters were killed by her husband, Marvin Patterson. We first reported this story the Monday following the massacre at UNLV. Patterson's rampage also included his 11-year-old stepson, who is still recovering at a local hospital.
Las Vegas, the city of lights, right? But let me tell you something, not far from all that glitz and glamour, a whole family just became another statistic. And the worst part? This didn't have to happen. Schinara Patterson, folks called her Nara. She was 34, owned her own hair salon called Talented Hands, and had 4 beautiful children. She was out here posting messages about peace and strength on her social media, inspiring her clients, loving her babies with everything she had. And she believed, Lord, she believed she had found her partner in Marvin Patterson, the man she married, the man she went to court for, the man who would end up taking her life. See, behind closed doors, Marvin wasn't just abusive. Nah, this man was a whole predator. They arrested him in 2023 for doing unspeakable things to minors, and I'm talking about his own daughter and stepdaughter. But Nara? She didn't walk away. She stood by him, went to court and testified to get his bail reduced, brought him right back into their lives. And the system let it happen. No gun restrictions, no real oversight, nothing. This man was angry, armed, and had nothing left to lose. So on this cold December morning, they found the bodies. Nara, her 6-year-old daughter Zamira, her 14-year-old daughter Kezia, and her 11-year-old son Derek, who by God's grace was still breathing, all shot in the house they shared with Marvin. 3 lives gone, 1 child is barely holding on, and the man who did it, dead by his own hand. But this ain't just about murder. This is about misplaced loyalty, a system that failed at every turn. And what happens when you trust somebody who never should have been free in the first place? You're watching Shadow Crimes TV, where we bring true crime and domestic violence stories out of the shadows. Subscribe now and join us daily as we uncover the cases that demand to be heard. Don't just watch, be part of the conversation. This is the case of Schinara Patterson and the man she died trying to believe in. Now let me paint you a picture of who Nara really was. This woman was 34 years old and devoted to her babies like you wouldn't believe. Born in Los Angeles, California, she carried herself with this confidence that just turned heads, had this smile that could warm up any room she walked into. She was that woman, you know, the type who walks in and just lifts the whole vibe, made strangers feel like family. The kind of mama who spoke life into her children and her clients every single day. At Talented Hands, her salon, she wasn't just braiding hair. Let me tell you something, calling her just a stylist would be selling her short. Nara was out here healing people while she worked. She uplifted folks, listened to their problems, gave advice, laughed with you, and cried with you. When you left her chair, you felt more beautiful than when you sat down. That's the kind of energy she had. And her social media, it was full of real talk, bold affirmations, that quirky humor we all love, and the kind of raw, unfiltered wisdom that made her followers feel like they really knew her. She posted one time, "I'm a lot of things, and I have to fix and work on a lot of things, but my loyalty is not one of them." And another time, as a hairstylist, "I think I ate this up, period." She wasn't trying to be perfect, she was just trying to be real, and she was. But her truest joy? Oh, that was her kids. She was a proud mother of 4, fiercely protective, loudly loving. Every birthday, every milestone, she celebrated like it was a national holiday. And before Marvin Patterson ever entered the picture, Nara was already doing the work of building a family on her own terms. So here's where it all started. Back in 2009, she met Marvin. They crossed paths in Las Vegas, where she had moved to start fresh. At that time, Marvin was working security. Seemed quiet, polite, dependable on the surface. They were friendly, maybe a little flirtatious, but they weren't together. Not yet. Back then, Nara just had her daughter Kazia from a previous relationship. Then in 2012, she gave birth to her son Derek. The family called him DJ. So here's Nara, raising her children on her own, like so many women do, with strength, resilience, and a whole lot of love. It wasn't until years later that she and Marvin would start something real. At some point, something shifted between them. The friendship got deeper. Marvin started stepping into a role, not just in Nara's life, but with her children too. And by 2017, they had their own daughter together, Schinara Patterson. Little Schinara was born in September 2017, and this beautiful baby girl became the heart of their growing blended family. And it was around that time that Nara and Marvin started really building a life together publicly. Then in May 2019, they got married, and when I tell you it was everything Nara had dreamed of, this was a lavish wedding, full of family, friends, and joy. The pictures from that day, she was glowing in white, surrounded by all the people she loved, believing with her whole heart that she had found the one. A man who would protect her, a man who would step up, a man who would love her children like his own. Together, they were raising 4 children. Cassia, her oldest, at 14, goofy and creative, loved to draw and laugh. Derek, 11 years old, quiet, thoughtful, full of heart. Schinara, their daughter, together, only 6, sweet, bubbly, the kind of child everybody just adored. And Marvin Jr. on the outside, they looked like a happy family. Birthday videos, TikToks, holiday photos, all telling the story of a woman who was finally settled, finally loved. But behind closed doors, that's where things were different. There were whispers at first, then bruises, then silence. See Marvin, according to friends and family, he was controlling, possessive. As time went on, Nara started getting isolated from her loved ones, from her own voice, from her own power. This man would check her phone, monitor her social media, and question every single move she made. And there was physical abuse too, choking, hitting, threats. Her friends begged her to leave, but she stayed, and not because she was weak. Let me make that clear. She stayed because she was hopeful. Because like so many women, she believed in the possibility of change. She thought if she just loved him harder, supported him more, kept the family intact, maybe he'd become the man she thought he was. Maybe the Marvin she met, that calm one, that protector, would come back. But more than anything, she stayed for those kids. She didn't want to uproot them, didn't want to break the home she had worked so hard to build. She wanted to hold on to the dream, even if it meant sacrificing herself piece by piece to keep it alive. But here's the thing about abuse. It doesn't get better with time, it gets worse. And in Marvin's case, it became deadly. By summer 2023, the cracks in Marvin Patterson's mask had gotten so wide you could see what he really was. And what he wasn't just an abuser, he was a predator, hiding in plain sight. And the people he targeted, they weren't strangers, they weren't outsiders, they were the very children he was supposed to protect. In July 2023, everything came crashing down. Marvin got arrested and charged with 9 felonies. 9. We are talking about 5 counts of lewdness with a child under 14, 2 counts of sexual assault involving minors, 1 count of lewdness with a child under 16, and 1 count of first-degree kidnapping of a minor. But here's what's gonna make your stomach turn. The alleged victims were his own daughters, not just one, both of them. The first was Schinara Patterson, Marvin's biological daughter, with Nara. She was only 6 years old. 6. The second was Cassia Cone, Nara's teenage daughter, from her previous relationship, his stepdaughter, a girl he had helped raise. This is the kind of betrayal that tears through your soul. two innocent girls, one of them barely old enough to spell her last name, the other a teenager probably trying to survive in silence, carrying the weight of secrets no child should ever have to bear. This man wasn't accused of touching some neighbor's kid. He wasn't accused of something vague or distant. He was accused of turning his own home into a hunting ground and violating the very trust a father figure is supposed to uphold. When the arrest went public, folks who knew Nara were shocked. But the police? They weren't. They had seen the signs. According to investigators, disclosures had been made, evidence had been collected, and the children had spoken. The horror was real. The Clark County District Attorney's Office took it seriously. They moved to keep Marvin in custody while he awaited trial. His bail was set at $100,000, and with those charges, if convicted, he would likely spend the rest of his life behind bars. The court also placed a standard condition: no contact with minors. But what happened next? Girl, it defied all logic, because as this case moved through the system, something unthinkable happened. Nara testified in Marvin's defense. She didn't stand with her daughters, she stood with him. In a written declaration submitted to the court, Nara described Marvin as loving, supportive, and trustworthy. She vouched for his character. She minimized the risk. She tried to humanize him. And you know what? It worked. Despite the fact that prosecutors strongly objected, and I mean strongly, the court decided to reduce Marvin's bail to just $10,000. The judge cited the support of his wife as a factor, the same wife whose daughters were the alleged victims. So 2 months after being arrested for molesting a 6-year-old and a 14-year-old, Marvin Patterson walked out of jail. Free. They put him on house arrest with high-level GPS monitoring. The conditions still said no contact with minors. But here's what they didn't do. They didn't restrict his access to firearms. Nothing stopped him from legally possessing a weapon. And while the court assumed he'd be living alone, reality had other plans. At first, Marvin stayed in the Loretto and Palacio apartment, which was approved as his house arrest address. Nara and the kids stayed in a separate home. There was a wall between them, legal and physical. But in late November 2023, that changed. Nara got evicted from her residence. With nowhere else to go, and probably not many resources, she made a decision that would prove fatal. She moved herself and all 4 children into Marvin's apartment. Think about that for a minute. A man facing charges for abusing 2 of those very children was now sharing a home with them again. On house arrest, awaiting trial, with no supervision, no firearm ban, no enforcement beyond an ankle monitor. The court hadn't just made a mistake, they had made a catastrophic miscalculation. And at the center of it all was Nara's loyalty, the kind of loyalty that many praised until it killed her. Online, she had written with strength and vulnerability. She was honest about her struggles. And in one post, not long after Marvin's release, she said, "I'm a lot of things, and I have to fix and work on a lot of things, but loyalty ain't one of them." To Nara, standing by Marvin was an act of faith, a sign of hope, maybe even survival. To the outside world, it was incomprehensible. To advocates, it was a textbook example of how emotional manipulation and trauma bonding can override even the strongest instincts. And let's not forget, this is not a woman who didn't love her children. This is a woman who praised them daily, who posted their birthdays online, who built her whole life around their joy. But love doesn't always protect you from grooming, and loyalty can become a prison, especially when it's weaponized by someone who knows just how much you want to believe they've changed. By December 2023, the house was full again. Nara, Marvin, Kazia, Derek, Zamira, Marvin Jr., all under one roof. A family is trying to move forward with a ticking time bomb at the center, and Marvin, he wasn't healing, He was spiraling. By early December, Marvin Patterson was running out of time. His trial for sexually abusing 2 children, his stepdaughter and his own 6-year-old daughter, was set for April 2024. The weight of that reality was hanging over him like a shadow he couldn't escape, and the life he tried to piece together, it was crumbling again. On December 10, 2023, Marvin sent some messages to his brother that should have been a red flag. He said he was about to be evicted, that his car had been repossessed, and that he didn't know how much more he could take. No job, no transportation, no future. That ankle monitor around his leg wasn't just tracking where he went, it was reminding him every day that the walls were closing in, and yet inside that small apartment just feet away were the people still trying to love him. Nara, Kazia, Derek, Zamira, Marvin Jr., a woman who forgave him, and children who were still healing. But Marvin didn't see them as blessings. He saw them as witnesses, as burdens, as proof of what he had done and what he was about to lose. The next morning, December 11th, the silence was loud. Marvin wasn't answering texts, calls went straight to voicemail. His brother noticed first. After those disturbing messages he had received from Marvin, he feared the worst. Worried, he drove over to Marvin's apartment complex, Laredo and Palacio, on the northwest side of Las Vegas. He knocked. Nothing. He knocked again. Still silence. Something was wrong. He broke down the door, and what he found would haunt him for the rest of his life. Bodies, blood, and the sound of faint breathing, just one, barely alive. The apartment was a mess. Marvin had gone from room to room, executing the people who had once called him family. Schinara Patterson, 34 years old, was shot dead. Kazia Cohn, his stepdaughter, was murdered. Zamira Patterson, his biological daughter, just 6 years old, was shot and killed. Derek Cox, 11, was critically wounded but still alive, clinging to breath. And Marvin himself, lying beside Nara, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. This wasn't some rage-fueled moment. This was planned, calculated, and carried out with the cold precision of a man who wanted to erase his consequences and everyone tied to them. The brother called 911, his voice raw and breaking. The dispatcher tried to keep him calm, but what could she say? He had just walked into the kind of scene most people only see in nightmares.
Dead in the bed. Okay. And do they have gunshot wounds too? Fire medical service. Yes. Okay. Do not hang up. Gunshot wounds and blood coming out their ears.
911 calls detailing the horrific scene of a multiple murder-suicide in the Northwest Valley that left 4 dead. The shooting happening last week near Durango in the US 95.
Now police say the shooter, Marvin Patterson, then turned the gun on himself. 8 News Now reporter Lauren Negretti with the disturbing audio.
Denise, Brian, police say Patterson shot and killed his wife, daughter, and stepdaughter and shot her son. At last check, family members say the son, DJ, is still fighting for his life in the hospital. A warning, the following audio may be hard to hear.
They're all gone. I need the police. I don't know who it is to come. They're all gone.
For medical.
I mean, medical, I hear one of the kids, they're breathing. They're trying to breathe.
Marvin Patterson's brother, frantic, around 10 a.m. December 11. He says Marvin texted him, overwhelmed. Then he kicked down the apartment door to see the tragedy within.
I saw my nieces, his nephews, they are prepared. I think they're gone. And then he was in the bed with his wife, and they're deceased as well.
The property manager also calling police.
One of the children's gasping. They look like they've all been shot in the back of the head. The 2 adults are dead in the bed. Okay. And do they have gunshot wounds too? Fire medical service. Yes. Okay. Do not hang up. Gunshot wounds and blood coming out their ears.
Patterson was on house arrest when the shooting occurred. 8 News Now investigators obtained Patterson's criminal history. He was accused of sex crimes against children and wore an ankle monitor.
Within minutes, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department arrived and shut the whole complex down. Officers flooded the property. Building 9 was taped off. Their mobile command unit rolled in, crime scene techs, homicide detectives. Everybody who responded knew this wasn't just another domestic call. This was something darker, something irreversible. Neighbors later told reporters they heard screaming, loud bangs, and what they thought were fireworks. They weren't. A nearby elementary school was placed on soft lockdown. Nobody knew if the shooter was still alive. Nobody knew if there were other victims. Residents watched in horror from their windows as dozens of officers combed the area, building a timeline out of blood and shell casings. Inside, first responders worked on Derek, the only child still breathing. They rushed him to the University Medical Center in critical condition. He had been shot, but somehow, by some miracle, he survived. But what do you do when survival means remembering everything? When survival means knowing that the man you once called stepdad tried to silence you forever, that he succeeded with your sisters, but not with you. The press moved in quickly. Cameras, news trucks, a press conference. Officials confirmed that Marvin Patterson had committed a murder-suicide, killing his wife and 2 daughters, severely injuring his stepson and turning the gun on himself.
Robert Price, I'm a lieutenant with the Las Vegas Metro Department. Today, I'm here to brief you on a very sad and tragic event, a homicide that took place at a 7500 block of Oso Blanca, which is the apartment complex directly behind me. Details of the call were LVMPD dispatch received a 911 call from an individual stating he came to the apartment complex to check up on his brother. Upon his arrival, he made entry into the house and observed several individuals inside the house suffering from gunshot wounds. He immediately stepped out, called 911, and officers from the Northwest Area Command responded on scene. They made entry, began rendering aid. One of the individuals seemed to be clinging for life and was transported by medical to UMC Hospital. The other 4 individuals inside the residence was pronounced deceased on scene. LVMPD homicide was dispatched. We arrived and we began our investigation. The preliminary details of this investigation, very preliminary details of this investigation, leads us to believe that this was a murder-suicide. The adult male, at some point in time during the morning or early morning hours, shot 3 juvenile children, an older female, and himself. Those are preliminary details of this investigation. So right now we have 1 adult male deceased, an adult female deceased, 2 juveniles.
An adult female deceased, 2 juveniles deceased, and 1 juvenile at UMC Hospital clinging. They were executed in their own home by the man the system handed a second chance. There was no dramatic chase, no standoff, no warning, just one quiet, brutal morning where an entire family was nearly erased, and in the center of it all was Marvin's silence. He didn't leave a note, he didn't leave a message, but his actions were clear. If he couldn't escape his consequences, he'd destroy the evidence. He didn't just kill them to avoid prison, he killed them to rewrite the story. But he failed because 1 child survived. 1 child lived to tell what happened, and 1 community refused to let this story fade into silence. In the days that followed, Las Vegas grieved. Candlelit vigils were held across the city. Balloons are released into the sky. Photos of Nara and her children lined the tabletops and news reports. Faces once full of joy, now frozen in memory. News reports remain unchanged. These are transcripts at University Medical Center.
And I'm Latoya Silman. Police say the man out on house arrest shot his wife and 3 children before turning the gun on himself. The coroner identified the victims who died as his wife, 34-year-old Schinara Patterson, his stepdaughter, 14-year-old Keziah Cohn, and his daughter, 6-year-old Zamira Patterson. An 11-year-old boy remains in the hospital tonight.
News 3's Kristen Drummond is here in the studio with us, continuing to investigate this case. So what are you finding out today, Kristen?
Well, Jim and Latoya, I continue seeking answers to so many questions, and that includes the big one many in the community have been continuing to ask.
Why did Marvin Patterson shoot his family? Well, tonight, a law enforcement source offers some clarity, telling me the 42-year-old sent concerning texts to his brother the night before the murder, indicating he was losing everything from his car getting repossessed to even getting evicted. Those messages likely prompted his brother to check on Patterson, who found the family shot Monday morning in the Northwest Valley apartment, according to Metro Police. But here's the other question we're also trying to uncover this week. Why were children in the apartment? That's another question we've been looking into, because Patterson was not allowed around anyone under the age of 18, according to court records. He was facing 9 charges related to sexual crimes against children. That includes 5 counts of lewdness with a child under 14. Now, court documents show Patterson was arrested last October. His bail at that time set at $100,000, but a local judge reduced it to $10,000 2 months later. He posted bond, and his conditions included not only being not around children under the age of 18, but to also surrender his passport and high electronic monitoring. Metro Police confirming with me today he followed the monitoring rules, and all places, including where the murder-suicide happened, were approved. But it's unclear at this time when Shinara and her children went to the apartment. Even friends seem unsure while at a fundraiser yesterday to raise money for funeral expenses.
You know why she was even at that apartment?
No, I have no clue why.
Because he wasn't even allowed to be around children under the age of 18.
No, I have no clue about what happened and what went on. I don't know anything about that.
I also spoke with Shinara's landlord today, and he confirms she was evicted from a home in Las Vegas late November. He tells me Shinara was not paying rent, but did not indicate any domestic violence concerns. And I also know she celebrated her 34th birthday the night before the murder. Now, here's the last question we continue asking. How is the 11-year-old boy recovering tonight? Well, his name is Derek. He's Shinara's son and Patterson's stepson. He remains in the hospital as of last check. Now, friends at the fundraiser telling me yesterday they keep praying for him. Patterson shot him in the head along with his siblings as well as his mother, according to the coroner. Friends say Derek showed some brain activity this week. His aunt right now is asking friends and family on social media for video message for his father to play by his bed.
11-year-old Derek Cox, the only survivor, fought for his life. And while his body began to heal, nobody could say what scars would remain. He had survived the unthinkable, but survival would come with a lifetime of remembering. As the funerals were planned, another conversation began, one more urgent than flowers and memorials. How was this allowed to happen? Why was a man accused of sexually abusing his own daughter and stepdaughter allowed out on bail? Why did the court not ban firearms? Why weren't child protection services alerted to the fact that his alleged victims were now living under the same roof? All eyes turned toward Judge Diana Sullivan, the one who dropped Marvin's bail from $100,000 to just $10,000. She gave no comment, but the district attorney's office confirmed what many feared. We oppose the bail reduction. Across the city and online, outrage erupted. Advocates called it what it was, a state-sanctioned failure. Jasmine Lee, founder of the Doc Ellis Foundation, said it best. The community was in danger. No one knew, and now 3 lives are gone. This wasn't just a tragedy, it was a system breakdown at every level. A man charged with 9 felonies, including molesting children, was allowed to go home, rejoin his alleged victims, and own a gun. Nobody stepped in, but through the pain, through the outrage, there's one truth we cannot ignore. Nara believed he could change. She wanted to keep her family together. She chose forgiveness over fear, and in the end her loyalty cost her everything. So we must say their names. Schinara Patterson, 34, a loving mother, a businesswoman, a protector. Kezia Cohn, 14, artistic, vibrant, a teenager with a future. Zamira Patterson, 6, joyful, gentle, still learning to write her name. Derek Cox, 11, the survivor, the witness, the boy who now carries the weight of it all. She helped him post bail. She let him into her home, and in return, he took her children, her peace, and her life. This wasn't just a murder, it was betrayal, sanctioned by the court and fueled by blind loyalty. She thought she could fix him, but some monsters wear wedding rings. Thanks for watching. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We bring you true crime stories daily, cases you know and ones you don't. Stay with us as we shine a light on shadowed stories that need to be heard.